out?
Oh yeah, the word is really getting out. There's a real big movement here that Kalaman first started, and then one of the reasons I wrote the Mayan Code is that Kalaman, because he's a biologist and a scientist, his work can sometimes be a little bit arcane, where in my case I'm very much a more popular writer. And so one of the things I wanted to do was write about this material in a way that would be accessible to hundreds of thousands and millions of people. And the book came out in, basically May, June, and it's really hot, and it's a bestseller in France at this point. So,
really?
it's a bestseller here in terms of New Age books, but in France it's actually kind of a bigger bestseller, and so people really do seem to be resonating with this. And the important thing about this theory, the basic issue with this theory would be that if we're on the verge of a critical leap in our evolutionary development, that each one of us needs to participate in that. We need to consciously and intentionally participate in our own evolutionary leap. And this material seems to help a lot of people do that.
On December 21st of 2012, is that the push point? Is that the date we can expect whatever's going to happen to happen?
Well, first of all, it doesn't all happen in one day. But you're also bringing up another interesting issue, which is that some of the Mayan calendar researchers look at the end of the calendar as being 2011, and some December 21st, 2012. And another reason that I wrote this book is because I'm working with both dates. And I think what's going on here is I think our evolutionary acceleration is going to complete itself during 2011. And then I think during 2012, the various seasonal cycles, the equinoxes and solstices, are going to be extremely important. So in my case, I'm an astrologer, and so I also wrote about the astrological transits in relationship to this theory. Because in the universe that I live in, if the astrology doesn't show something going on, there probably isn't anything going on at all.
Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, and so as a matter of fact, the astrological transits during this period, especially since 1999, are just absolutely incredible. So first I wrote a very detailed appendix about that because it's very complicated. And then on my website, I've been counseling people new moon to new moon to new moon and through the seasons because what's going on in the sky is so extraordinary.
Barbara, once we go beyond, let's say 2012, we're into 2013, 14, 15, what's going to be happening then?
Well, that's where I got really specific, because Kalaman is saying that we're going to attain enlightenment, and which would mean that we're going to just go to a whole other level of our potential as humans, which I think is possible. But I don't think any of that's going to be possible without peace. And so one of the things I tracked from 1999 through 2012 is the attainment of world peace. And I actually think that that is going to happen. And that probably is the most radical thing about the Mayan Code, including how that could happen. One of the things I bring up is the question of exopolitics, which has to do with extraterrestrial issues regarding world peace. And I just don't think there's any way we're going to get out of the dilemma we're in now unless we attain world peace. And so I actually tracked how that could happen according to the calendar. And I turned in the manuscript the fall of 2006. And what I did in the book is I explicitly said this and this and this is going to happen in 2007, 2008, 2009, so on and so forth. And so far, the accuracy of what I was able to predict even has me amazed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm just amazed myself. I get it out and check it every once in a while, and I can't believe it. Like one of the things it predicted is that peace would come to Jerusalem in the fall of 2008.
So we've got some predictions here we can talk about.
Oh, specific, yeah. And so when I turned in the book, Israel was bombing Lebanon, and it was about the stupidest thing that anybody ever could have said. And yet there's moves all over the place now to create that. And another thing, I don't want you to think I'm a pie idealist, because I think peace usually comes just because people are exhausted and they lay down their arms. So it's not that everybody's getting...
Well, you may be right about that. They're just tired of fighting.
I think that's probably the only way that peace ever comes. People just finally give up and they surrender.
Well, that's true. And those who don't continue to fight on.
Yeah, well, we haven't always been like this, George. From an anthropological point of view, we've only been a really aggressive species, a warlike species, really for about 4,000 or 5,000 years. And before that, we weren't like that on this planet. And so I don't believe we always have to. I don't believe we have to continue to be like this.
All right. If I were to say, I think in 2012 we're going to get hit with huge solar flares, massive coronal injections, is that possible?
It's not only possible; it's just about 100% likely.
So
I mean,
okay.
Sure, because we're coming up to a solar maximum, which is not only an 11-year maximum, but it's also a 60-year maximum. So definitely, we're going to have heavy-duty solar flares in 2011, 2012. And yet solar flares are a really interesting thing because I'm really sensitive to them. I'm probably more sensitive to them than almost anybody that you'll meet. Like I have to watch, I have to check every day to see what's going on with the sun, because if there's a flare and I don't know about it, I get really upset. And then once I know it's a solar flare, I calm down and I relax. And so they affect us to an extreme degree. And it would be logical to me that solar flares might have something to do with the critical leap and the next stage in evolution, because that seems to be the case in the past.
Would you rule out an asteroid strike, that the Mayans were predicting something like that?
Well, now that's where I operate a little bit on the inside, and with the Mayans, that is. And we did have an asteroid that came really close to our planet in 1987 called 1989 called 1989A. And what we did was we had gigantic ceremonies down in the Yucatan that went on for 3 weeks because of that asteroid. And the ceremonies all culminated on the spring equinox 1989 at Chichen Itza, when the asteroid actually went over and it landed in the ocean next to the Yucatan, in the what do you call it, whatever it is there. And I actually heard it going through the air. It sounded like a vacuum sucking through the air. It was really pretty amazing. And so I would like to say that, speaking from the inside, none of the Mayan elders that I know and that I talk to are talking about anything like that.
Do you believe that the Mayans, when they put together this calendar, that they were afraid of the future?
That's a difficult question. I don't know whether I understand their mindset in that regard. What I do know, I think we all know, is they were really obsessed with time and obsessed with these cycles. And that would certainly indicate that they were extremely concerned about something.
Why does it end?
Well, it certainly would seem to be tracking the end of a whole evolutionary progression. I mean, that's certainly what I've written about in my book.
Exactly.
In other words, we aren't going to end. The Earth isn't going to end, I don't think. But the Mayan calendar is going to end. And so then the question is, number one, what does it mean in the first place? And then what might possibly happen after it's over with?
It's like when a show ends. I mean, that's it, folks. Yeah. It's done. It's over. Yeah. See you next week.
Yeah, I'm going to retire.
So they just felt that whatever will be ongoing comes to an end.
They felt that what they were tracking was going to come, I think, to a culmination point. And I really believe that what that is that we would come to the critical leap in our evolution, and we not only would arrive at that point, but I think the most amazing thing about the times that we're living in now is that we would also comprehend our own evolution and understand what's happening to us. And that's really what the Mayan Code is all about, and what Kalaman's research is all about, is for us to come to the point where we can comprehend the meaning of our own evolution, which is an extraordinary idea.
Later on, Barbara, I want to open up the phone lines, not only for people to talk with you about this, but also I'd like to get people's impressions on what they think might happen. Has there ever been a survey done with just the population on what they think will happen around 2012?
As you know, there's lots of books written about it, but I don't think there's ever been a survey, not that I know of.
All right, so we'll
certainly,
do our
if we
own
watch the general
calls.
populace, we watch the evangelical movement, Pentecostal movements. There are many, many movements on the planet right now that think the world is coming to an end.
All right, stay with us, Barbara. We're going to talk about prophecies and a global cataclysm that you describe around 11,500 years ago. I'm George Norrie, back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Well, I don't know if you picked up the After Dark newsletter as a holiday gift for anyone, but you know what? You can always pick it up over the new year as well. So call 1-888-727-5505. That's 1-888-727-5505. Or you can go online, safe and secure, at coasttocoastam.com. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie, Barbara Hand Clow, our special guest. Barbara, let's talk a little bit about this global catastrophe that occurred 11,500 years ago.
Right. I wrote a book in 2001 called